consumes the majority of the time. So it would be around like 70% of the time cycle. So we work from the beginning of the chip till at the later point of time, and even if the chip is taped out, so we will be continuously working with the silicon team as well on the design features in case if there are any bugs, and we will be creating scenarios that would help them corner out the scenario. So working as a verification engineer, so we get to see the whole cycle of the chip, and there are some times where the task becomes hectic during the tape out times. There will be some crunch for 2 to 3 weeks of time, and so for the rest of the time, it would be pretty much balanceable.
That was very insightful, sir. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Could you tell us about your journey from a verification engineer to a senior staff verification engineer, sir?
So I started off as an intern in LSI Systems. Now it's Avago Systems, and so this was during 2010. And so I moved to SanDisk, now currently Western Digital. And from there on, I worked there for close to 8 to 9 years, and then I moved to Samsung for a brief period of time, and now I'm associated with Google. So the whole career I have been working on verification itself, right from my being an intern. So yeah. So verification has been my bread and butter from the beginning, and I have been doing some supporting roles as well during my term in Western Digital. So it's something like we will not be associated with 100% verification as well. So we will be doing some supportive roles for the other teams. So that is part of our job over there in any company. And yeah, I've got a chance to work as an individual contributor, team lead, with quite like close to people around 15 members. Yeah. So just to iterate, the journey was very good. I'm very delighted to have such a journey.
Yeah, yes, sir.
When you first joined the company, what did you learn? How was your experience? And are there like any difficulties that you faced in the initial stages?
Okay, so once we are into a corporate world, so the first thing we have to understand is we have to be self-motivated, and so the initiative should be taken from our side. So we don't have to wait for someone to guide us. So in case if there are some tasks which so there will be in a team, typically, so there will be multiple tasks running around. So we have to be watchful of what are the tasks that are being handled by the team and the manager. And so we have to look for the opportunities, like in case if anything interests us, and so in case if something is very interesting, so then we can go to talk to the person. So in case if you are interested, try to understand the task and talk to the manager, so you can create your own direction. So here in corporate, right, so you have to create your own direction. So you have to plan ahead, like in which direction you have to go. And on the same way, you have to create your own learnings. So there will be multiple learnings around in the system. So you have to see which is the one which helps your career growth. And so keep building up your contacts, talk to people, like in case they will be looking for some support role, someone, in case if you have that skill set, then you can go ahead and help them out. So just to iterate on this answer, so you are the boss of yourself, so you have to direct yourself.
Yes,
So that is
sir. And
first.
I'm sure a lot of freshers who are going to join the company will benefit through what you said and will be able to relate.
Sure.
Yes, so when you first joined the company as a fresher, how
Mhm.
long did it take for you to get comfortable to settle in, sir?
So there are two times I joined as a fresher. I joined as an intern in LSI. So there, as I was part of contract team, so we did not have access to the full level of training. So we will be on the support role, and whatever the task my mentor used to get, so he used to share over there. And so he used to tell me like what are the tools that I would be needing to get the task done. So that way I was able to understand what are the things one has to learn, like scripting. So we will not be able to explore much on the scripting side during our academic session. But coming to the corporate side, scripting becomes part and parcel of the job, and the better you are at it, and the better it helps in your task. So that one. And when I moved to SanDisk, so there, so as an NCG, so there, the training was pretty much figure like in place, and it helped me to ramp up easily. And so though there were documentation, the lack of documentation, and it was the information was a bit scattered. So I was able to go like pull in people, like get information from them, like how to proceed further for the trainings and all. So it typically depends on the company. For any individual, if we consider, it typically depends on the company and their training policy. So few companies have very good training policy in place. So as of now, the previous company where I worked, Western Digital. So at a later point of time, we were able to put in very good amount of training in place. So which would help a new college graduate to ramp up very easily. And so the contribution time has to be reduced. In case the ramp up time, the time the one individual takes to start to contribute. So typically for an NCG, we consider first year we consider it as a ramp up time itself. But so he should be able to come up to the speed for the rest of the supporting roles.
Yes, sir.
How was your experience working with colleagues with a UG and PG background, sir?
So if we consider from the tier one and tier two colleges, so there would be a very subtle amount of difference that would be noticed, hardly noticed from UG and PG, but there is some inherently some research background for the PG person, where they will be spending a lot of time on a project, and they will be having more insight into the curriculum. And coming to the task side, one will be able to do his task easily in case if he is watchful of the task, and uh, the level of interest he shows in the task. So in case if you are able to maneuver through the insights of the task and get understanding of the task, and talk to someone like senior people, like how what's the better best approach. So these are all the things that one can use for his advantage. So even if it is a PG or a UG, so so that shouldn't be a big part in the job.
Okay, sir.
So yes, sir. So we previously talked about your experience as a fresher, sir, in the company.
Mhm.
So yes, sir. So now could you tell us about your experience while transitioning from one company to another company?
Okay. So transitioning from one company to another company, right? So once you start off as a new employee in a new company, so it will again be like starting from the scratch. Like you have to understand the policies of the company, the work environment, the task. Uh, so there would be some considerable amount of ramp up time. So but as one transitions from one company to another company based on his experience level, So there will be some level of comfort where one gets to understand his own skill set. So where he can immediately start to contribute and slowly understand the parts and parcels of the job in the new company. So typical so once we move to other company, right? Uh, uh, it takes some considerable amount of time in understanding the whole workflow. So, as an alternative, there are some options like some internal transfers are also applicable now. A lot of companies prefer to make internal transitions of the company, of the individual. So, in case the individual is comfortable enough for an internal transfer, so he can opt for it because he will get to know a better understanding of the product perspective. So he will get to work on at different levels of the product. But once we move out of the company to other company, so again, from we have to start from the scratch, like the understanding of the environment, and then getting used to the workload, getting used to the projects, and the ramp up time he one will take in understanding the tasks and all.
So yes, sir.
Uh, so, sir, since you have had ample amount of experience in the verification engineering sector, could you tell us about the works that a verification engineer does?
Okay. The majority of the work of a verification engineer is to check the functional validity of the design, right? So functional, if the whether the design is matching the intended spec or not. And apart from these tasks, so verification engineers are involved into other many other tasks like um, performance validation, power simulations, and gate level simulations, and a lot of automation goes into this because so we have to check a lot of scenarios, and manually checking them is not possible. So we come up with a lot of automated checks and scripts to pass through the logs and publish the results, and more so in case we can come up with some graphs to display like what scenario is giving more number of values. uh, this automation is also part and parcel of the verification engine itself. And not just from this, and so there are some supporting roles that would be required for other teams in case there are some spice level of simulations that are being done for a particular product. The verification engineer will be involved in generating particular scenarios that would be helpful for the spice simulations and the checks which we developed. So as of now, majorly the design team will be using them, but apart from these, there are some other some other teams that would try to that would be requesting us to leverage on these checks. So verification engineer would be supporting like many teams at the same time.
Thank you, sir. I think that gave us all a very good understanding about the verification engineering role, especially from a person who is working in that sector.
Yes, sir. So how does the verification role differ from the other roles, sir? How do you say it differs from other roles?
Okay. See, as I was telling, the verification time takes close to 60 to 70% of the design cycle development. So if you consider ASIC flow, so there are design times, and then we have the timing closures and all, right? So before even going to that, so we have to ensure that the design is matching the intended specification. So this is where the role of the verification engineer comes into picture. So in case if there is the design has been coded with a bug and that bug is propagated to the silicon, the iterations would increase. When I say the iterations, the product time to the market. So this is where the companies lose to the competitors. So and also the iterations that take place during the fabrication. So that would add on an extra cost to the company because a lot of chips will get wasted. So we as a verification engineer has to ensure that those iterations would reduce or at least go to a minimal number and ensure that the product reaches to the market sooner uh, and bug free. So in case if a bug is in the product, so the customer, whoever is taking the product in a bulk, so they might not be interested. The product itself might not qualify to be shipped. So we have a lot of responsibility is on the verification engineer to ensure that the product is bug free and is of utmost quality.
Okay, sir. Could you tell us about the prerequisites which are needed for being a verification engineer?
Prerequisites, right? So, if you consider from the NCG new college graduate point of view, the understanding of the digital design as similar to the digital designer, that should be good at the good starting point. So so if we see these prerequisites, right? So we have the digital designer and the verification engineer. So verification engineer has to learn the digital concepts as well as verification concepts. So it is more onto the verification engineer in understanding more concepts. So if we look at the prerequisites, the digital design we have to understand it very thoroughly, and system verilog language, right? System verilog language as from the verification concepts as well would be really helpful. Like we have coverage, functional coverage, and randomization concepts in the system verilog itself. So the methodologies, whatever we have, so they are built on top of system verilog language, the UVM methodology which I'm talking, and the assertions which used to check, which are used as a checkpoints. So they are also part of system verilog, right? So system verilog and the digital concept should be a very good starting point, as well as some scripting concepts.
Thank you, sir, for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So you've now told us about the work of a verification engineer and the different responsibilities. Now, could you tell us about the different sub-profiles under the verification engineering domain? And in what profile did you work in, sir?
Okay. Subprofile, as I was mentioning earlier, the major task of a verification engineer is to check the functional validity of the design, right? So once this functional validity is completed, so we are similarly simultaneously we will be having coverage analysis like code coverage, functional coverage, as well as we have gate level simulation, power aware simulations, and performance validation of the chip. So we have the same design. We will be verifying at IP level as well as SOC level. So IP level is a small block level verification, and SOC is integrated verification. So these two, there are two. Typically, there will be two different teams handling these, and then we have a lot of automation tasks, and some of the blocks are modeled in System C. So even that majority of the times that task will also be handled by the verification team itself. And so nowadays a lot of times emulation is being applied, so where the design so this will help in speedily validating the design. So these are all sub-profiles, subtasks that are handled by the verification team as a umbrella.
Yes, sir.
So we're sure that this pandemic has had an impact on a lot of people's work life. How has this pandemic affected your work life? Is it in a positive sense or has it had a setback?
Yeah. So every event will have a positive and pros and cons. So looking from pandemic perspective, a semiconductor industry as an industry, if we see, it has grown. You can see a lot of companies are hiring. They are expanding teams. They have understood the importance of semiconductor chips worldwide. So a lot of team companies are investing more, and from the individual perspective, if we see, so we'll be working individually. So it's been like close to 2 years since we have started to work from home. The discussions, obviously, there is an advantage having a discussion in office, so where we can just walk to the person and have more intense level of discussion, get more insight into the design. Here everything has to be pre-planned, right? So in case if you have any questions, any understanding that needs to be done from your side, so you have to schedule, you have to plan it properly, so that the other person is not surprised because of the ad hoc meetings and all.
Okay, sir.
So what are situations in your work life that you feel that you could have done better?
Okay, there are a lot of situations. There are a lot of learnings that we take from each of the situation, but what I see, the major one would be uh, to plan ahead, right? In case if we being more assertive of your workloads and all, so it doesn't have to be like you keep saying yes to all the tasks, and the management would be comfortable with your dates, whatever the dates you provide, and the dates should be, comfortably marked for yourself. It should not be like you commit to a date and you will not be able to deliver. You realize at a later point of time the dates would be, it will not be able to reach. So that such kind of things should be reduced. That is what the one learning I have taken.
So it's something which even I feel I have to learn at this moment.
Um, sir, it will be really beneficial for students who want to go into the verification domain if you could tell us the scope for this domain in the near future.
Okay. So as I was telling earlier, so verification is very time consuming and things and all, right? So there are typically 1:2 or 1:3 number of designer versus verification engineers. So in case if you have three designers, there would be around 7 to 8 verification engineers working on the design. So why this level of ratio is, I was telling, right, to reduce the iteration of the bugs and the silicon time to the product, time of the product to the market, right? So verification has a very good scope of growth, and one has to be very watchful of the techniques, latest techniques that one can employ into the verification. For a starter point of view, for in like the person who is currently in academic level, so he can typically his career would be more on his project level. So in case if you are able to understand the mnemonics of the verification from your project, academic project itself, so that would be really helpful for the companies coming for campus interviews. right? So typically during academic level, we will not be considering verification as a separate entity. We will be only designing the chip and going ahead with the code. So in case if a separate, some amount of time is spent on the verification in understanding the concepts and how the verification flow works in the design and able to catch some of the issues. So that would be really helpful for a person in his career in case if he wants to grow into a verification ladder.
Yes, sir. I'm sure after this, many students will have verification as one of their options in their career.
You can ask me in case if you have more questions on this one.
Okay, sir. Sure.
So what kind of suggestions would you provide for present UG students who are going to work, sir, in the future?
Okay, so for the person, for a student who is going to join the company, so initiative, self-initiative is the key. So whatever he wants to learn, and one has to see what are all the tasks that are being done from the company side, from his team side, and he can create his own path and start working towards his the targeted ladder he wants, where he wants to be. And so the companies, a lot of companies follow open door policy where one can schedule a meeting with even a director and get in information. So it is about the initiative one has to take in, either in learning or creating. So in case if there is no any information available, so one can create that information and publish it in the team. So that would bring a lot of positivity to that person, positive feedback. So even there could be scenario where there are no documentations, so we don't have to feel setback because of that lack of information. So one can create his understandings and publish it out and get feedback, and it is an iterative process. So nothing could be done in a single day, so that has to be understood. So in an iterative way, how, what are the better approaches? So whenever one wants to get more information, so the approach is pretty open in the industry. So the initiative is the key.
So yes, I'm sure the students will follow this, sir.
Sure.
Okay, sir. So with this, we've reached the end of this session. Thanks a lot, sir, for taking time out of your schedule and being here with us today and also enlightening us. It was a very informative session, and I'm sure a lot of students will benefit through this. This is Nilofer and Abhinandan signing off. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day, sir.